Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. Today we're going to be taking you through a $100 upgrade for the Sliver Swarm deck. My name is Dave, and joining me today we have the creator of this upgrade list, Shane.
Hi.
Shane, so I know that you're actually a huge Sliver fan. You actually already have a Sliver deck, and whenever this deck was announced, I feel like you kind of pounced on this one. We did it kind of randomized, and I felt like everybody got what they wanted to get, which was pretty neat.
I'll take that.
So before we go ahead and dive in with the deck itself, and then also talk a little bit about how you spent that $100, give us a little bit of a run through. Like, what is the commander? What does the deck want to do straight out of the box? And then, like, what kind of ideas did you have with it?
Definitely. Well, the face commander of this deck is the Sliver Gravemother. They're Wooburg for a 6/6 Sliver. They say the legend rule doesn't apply to slivers you control. They also say each Sliver creature in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is mana value. And this also has Encore 5. So you can exile this card from your graveyard, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, you gotta sacrifice them to be in your next end step. Only has sorcery, blah, blah, blah. But this card is nuts, dude. So this card, I think this deck really cares about replaying your slivers from the graveyard, which is interesting because, like you did mention, I do have a slivers deck that somebody that's great at Magic building built for me. Wink, wink, Dave. And it's a lot of fun. And it mainly is just kind of go wide like slivers normally do. You amass a huge threat on the board. All your slivers let every other sliver do something crazy, and you just overwhelm your opponents. And this one kind of seems like it's going to be a little different, to where if you can get the Gravemother out, even if your slivers get killed, it's not just like, oh, well, I'm a fragile deck, I died, they're gone. Now they're going to be able to come back and attack again. So I think it's going to be a really fun sliver deck.
Yeah, that is really neat, especially because a lot of slivers do things where it's like other slivers you control get, or all slivers, I guess, get +1/+1 or something. So if you do Encore, you get all those extra copies. So your team's going to get huge.
It's going to be pretty nuts.
That's really cool. Out of curiosity, just because I see the way that this card is designed versus some of the other Sliver Lords, is this a Sliver Lord that you think that you're going to try to rush to get into play, or do you think that you're going to save this potentially until like maybe somebody has spent a board wipe?
Yeah, I was going to say, originally, other slivers, you kind of want to get your commander out really earlier, I guess, as fast as you can, because they're so beneficial to kind of snowball your board. This one does kind of seem like you can play your other slivers and leave this kind of just hanging back. And then let's say that you get a first board wipe. And once the first board wipe hits you, okay, cool. I'm going to play my Gravemother. And all that stuff you just board wiped, it's all going to start coming back now. So I don't think you want to be rushing this out as quickly as normal.
That's kind of unique and definitely very interesting. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So I know that there was another legendary creature that you can use as your commander in this list. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that commander and why it is that you chose to stick with the Sliver Gravemother?
Yeah, the backup is Rukaramel, Biologist. They are Wooburg for a 3/3 human wizard. Says as they enter the battlefield, choose a creature type. Slivers you control and non-token creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other creature types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. You can also pay 3, tap them, create a 1/1 colorless Sliver creature token. It kind of seems like it's going down a different route. That's why I wanted to stick with Gravemother, because I'm just going to play a bunch of slivers and bring them back. This kind of seems like you could just almost go and rebuild the deck around her. But since the majority of this deck is all just slivers already, I'm going to stick with that theme. You know what I mean? Like, this does seem like one of the other Sliver Queen, I want to say it is. The one that will also create you a sliver. But I'm going to stick with Gravemother.
That's really interesting because I'd imagine that the majority of the creatures in this deck, just straight out of the box, are probably slivers. So her normal abilities there, like your slivers or slivers?
That's exactly. Well, I'm thinking you might use her in a different build that maybe don't care. Yeah, this deck is like 48 slivers out of the box, dude. A lot of slivers.
All right. Well, with that being said, sticking with the Sliver Gravemother, let's go ahead talk about some of the creatures that you threw into this list.
Definitely. Well, I kind of wanted to go through and look at my current sliver deck that I have, and I was kind of comparing what is this deck missing, and it doesn't really have many of the Wooburg slivers, mainly because those 4 or 5 color slivers are a little pricey. But the first one we're going to add is Sliver Legion. They are a white, a blue, a black, a red, a green for a 7/7 sliver. It says all sliver creatures get +1/+1 for each other sliver on the battlefield. So if you've got 5 slivers on the battlefield, all of them are going to be getting +4/+4. And they basically just keep getting bigger the more you play. So it just incentivizes you for playing slivers.
Yeah, this is also a card that if you do manage to encore this, oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
that's game.
I can't even math that. Yeah, that's like times 4. Yeah, that's too much math for me.
I can't map that. I love that. That's just enough math to kill.
Yeah, it's for the blockers, dude, not for the attackers.
All right, so
Well,
awesome inclusion on that one. What are the big cards that we got?
yeah, so a card that just got reprinted actually fits perfectly into this deck. Morphon the Boundless. It is 7 generic for a 6/6 shapeshifter. They are a changeling, and it says, as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. It also says spells of the chosen type you cast cost Wooburg less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. It also says other creatures you control of the chosen type get a +1/+1. There is a lot going on in this card. Not only is it going to count as a sliver in your deck for you because of the changeling, it's also going to make all your slivers just cheaper and if not free. So any Wooburg, including your commander, those are just going to be free spells, at least for the initial cast of your commander, right? So that's a free spell right off the bat. And then also, it's pumping all of your slivers by +1/+1. Like, this card almost does too much.
Yeah, this card is definitely carrying a lot of weight there. I don't know. I'm just seeing the value of something like this, and then once again, going back to that encore ability. I mean, you get multiple copies of this thing out because the legend rule is not going to matter for you, and oh my goodness, all of your things are probably just going to be, I don't know. I don't even. Never mind. I don't even know if you have like double pips or like double red, double green, whatever the case may be. But like that is such a massive reduction in cost.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so
Oh,
of course, I do happen to see that we have another sliver inclusion here.
we're a sliver deck. This sliver wasn't actually in the sliver list, but I think it's a really strong sliver. So I'm throwing in homing sliver. It is 2 and a red for a 2/2 sliver. It says each sliver card in each player's hand has sliver cycling 3. It also has sliver cycling 3 itself. And what is sliver cycling? Because I didn't really know what the heck that was. You could pay 3, discard this card, search your library for a sliver card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This is one way to where if you don't like the cards in your hand, you can just sliver cycle them and search up one of your super strong ones, or this is a very situational, like, this gives you access to almost your entire deck. And I think that's fantastic.
So I especially love this card in this build because not only is it acting as a tutor, but you can just discard something. So discard maybe one of your other slivers and then encore the sliver that you just discarded so that you get all that extra value too. This card is insane.
Yeah, I was wondering why they didn't add it, but hey, we're gonna add it.
All right, and it looks like maybe one more creature that we've gotten the inclusion here. Let's talk a little bit about that one.
Yep, this one's not going to be a sliver. I know, blasphemy, it's not a sliver in a sliver deck. But sometimes you have a little bit of mana problem in these kind of 5-color decks. So I'm throwing in Bloom Tender. 1 generic and a green for a 1/1 elf druid. It just says tap it for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So this is just a great way to make mana.
All right, nice little mana dork style of card there. They can definitely get out of control really quickly, especially in a 5-color deck.
Yep.
All right, moving on. It looks like we have a single sorcery that we've thrown in here. Talk a little bit about it, Shane.
I like the idea of, okay, all your slivers are going to die, right? I guess I don't like that idea, but it's going to happen. All your slivers are going to die. And let's say they've board wiped you once or twice now. We're going to throw in Eerie Ultimatum to kind of just counteract all that. Eerie Ultimatum is 2 white, 3 black, and 2 green for a sorcery card that says return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. So let's say after that, like I said, 2 board wipes, you're going to play this card and you're going to bring not just encoring, 1 or 2 of you're going to bring every single one of your slivers back onto the battlefield. This is probably a game-ending card.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually ever survived somebody casting an Area Ultimatum. Typically, that just kind of like either wins the game on the spot or just gives them such a massive board state where there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, I can't imagine you bringing back 7, 10, 15 slivers and going, I'm not going to win now, guys.
All right, so we've got 2 other little trinkets that you've added in here, some pretty neat style effects. Let's talk about some of the artifacts.
So the way that the Encore effect works with your commander, you're going to be getting those cards back, but then at the beginning of your end step, you're going to be sacrificing them. And I don't like sacrificing things. So we're going to throw in Sundial of the Infinite, 2 generic mana for an artifact that says, pay 1, tap it, end the turn. Activate this ability only during your turn. So what you can do with this is after you've encored all your creatures that you want, on your second main, you can just pay the 1, tap this, and just end the turn there, completely skipping your end step. So you will just not have to, you won't have to get rid of any of the things you brought back. Very mean.
Yeah, that's definitely a heck of a way to build up a board state. We got one other card here. Let's go ahead and move on to this one.
This is Convergence of Dominion, 3 generic mana for an artifact that has Dynastic Command Node. As long as you control your commander, activated abilities of cards in your graveyard cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that ability's activation cost to less than 1. You also can pay 3, tap it, mill 3 cards. You're probably not going to mill 3 cards very often. I mean, you could. But the fact that now your Encores are costing 2 less, that could be pretty big in this deck.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't know. You said that you're probably not going to mill a whole lot, but if you do happen to have like no board state, that's a way for you to be able to get those little encores into the graveyard. So
It's very
that's kind
true.
of neat.
Very true.
All right, so I see 2 enchantments we're going to talk about. How do these fit into the deck, and what do they do for you?
The first of the enchantments we're throwing in is Elven Chorus. It is 3 and a green for an enchantment. It says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. It also says you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. And it also says creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. This is just another way to fix your mana, because even in the other Sliver deck that I have, mana is very important. So just making sure you don't ever miss your color you're looking for. This just turns all your creatures into a tap ability, which is great. Also, being able to play from the top of your library is just good card advantage. So I think this card just does a lot for you.
Yeah, and in a 5-color creature deck that's so heavy on creatures, this is going to definitely it's going to pull a lot.
Very much. We're also going to throw in Kindred Discovery. It is 3 and 2 blue for an enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. I'm sure many people have seen this card, but this is just great card advantage in any kind of tribal deck. So anytime we cast a Sliver or attack, you're getting to draw a card. That's fantastic. This is just great card advantage, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is something that you're gonna drop this and name Elder Dragon and
Definitely.
have a great time with it.
I can draw 0 cards. Yeah, exactly.
All right, now I did happen to see there was some pretty big concerns for this deck straight out of the box whenever it comes to the mana base. I see that you got a couple of lands here. Let's talk a little bit about those, and how do you think this is going to help the mana base of the deck?
I think in any kind of Precon, the lands are always struggling, and very much so in a 5-color. You know, WotC's not just going to give you all the gas lands. So right off the bat, I wish we saw a reprint of this, but I want to throw in Sliver Hive. It's a land that can tap for a mana. It could also tap for a mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast Sliver spells. Or you could pay 5, tap it, and put a 1/1 colorless Sliver creature token onto the battlefield. Activate this ability only if you control a Sliver. So I was kind of wondering why this wasn't reprinted. I think everyone had that same thought. So it is creeping up there a bit. At the time of recording, though, it will fit into the deck in our upgrade. But this just, of course, goes in any Sliver deck you have.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this mana fixes for you. It has the potential to make tokens for you as well. This is an auto include in a Sliver based deck.
Very much so. And like I was saying in Precons, they won't throw in all the great lands. They do put in all the tri lands that they don't actually say the land type though. So I'm throwing in Rafine's Tower, Spar's Headquarter, Zayator's Proving Ground. Those are just great tri lands that also have the name of the land on them. So all the slow fetches that you do get in this deck, you'll be able to go and fetch for these cards now, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fetch for the tri lands that are currently in the deck.
Cool. So a nice little way for you to be able to fetch these cards out, hopefully fix up your mana, and then I don't know, the triumphs are all a fantastic cycle. So
Yep.
All right, so pretty solid inclusions there. Obviously, whenever it comes to some inclusions, we do also need to cut a couple of cards to make room for it. Let's go ahead and move on here. And I happen to see you have a group of creatures that we're going to be cutting here first.
Yes, it's going to sound weird, but just kind of hear me out. This is a Sliver deck, I'm aware, but I'm going to be cutting 6 Slivers out of this deck. And that sounds like a lot, but the reasoning for that is a lot of these Slivers just, they do a thing, but all the other Slivers that I'm keeping in the deck, they do that thing plus another thing. So a lot of these cards maybe just do only one addition to Slivers. So let's just jump into these. The first one I'm cutting is Two-Headed Sliver. It's 1 in the red for a 1/1 Sliver that says all Sliver creatures have menace. There are other ways that we're going to get menace in this deck. This only just does that. So I just want to cut that just because I'm making room for bigger and badder toys in this deck. I'm also going to be cutting Blade Sliver, 2 in a red for a 2/2 Sliver. All Sliver creatures get +1/+0. It's kind of an underwhelming effect. It's weird to say underwhelming, but there are other Slivers that just do insane things. And this was a pretty easy cut for me as well. We're going to get rid of Hollow Head Sliver, 2 generic and a red for a 2/2 Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have tap, discard a card, draw a card. I don't really like this effect too much, only because you're probably this deck really just wants to attack. You're very aggressive, and to use this ability, you're going to be not attacking because you're going to be tapping. And so unless you give your creatures vigilance, which there is a way to do, you're going to be taking a turn off of attacking. I'm not a big fan of that. Plus, we have other fantastic ways to draw cards in this deck, so I didn't think we needed this card very much. I'm also going to be cutting Blur Sliver, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have haste. There are a lot of other ways to be getting haste in this deck. I don't want you to be thinking, oh my god, no haste in slivers, you're going to be crappy now. No, there are other slivers that give you haste and something else at the exact same time. So we're going to keep those, and we're just going to be cutting the one that has just the measly haste on its own. So we're getting rid of that. We're also going to cut Spiteful Sliver, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have, whenever this creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target player or planeswalker. Again, it just does the one thing. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but a lot of these slivers, when you play them, they will do this plus another thing. So the one that just has this by itself, I cut it out to make room for the bigger and badder. And then the last sliver that I'm cutting of the 6 is Bone Splitter Sliver, 3 and a red, for a 2/2 sliver that says all slivers get +2/+0. The same kind of thing that the Blade Sliver did for me. It does give you a bit of a bump, but the other things that are in this deck are just so much more of an oomph that it's kind of weird to say, but it's a lackluster sliver in my opinion. We're going to cut that one as well.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. After hearing your list and your thought on these, I'm just thinking you have a thing against red.
Hey, I'm sorry that you're the red player, but yeah, I kind of do.
Okay, all right. I see how it is. Any other creatures you're gonna be removing from the precon?
The backup commander in this deck that we kind of had questions about, Carmel, Biologist. I just don't think it fits in this deck very well. If I draw this card, I'm not happy. I would be kind of bummed to draw this card, honestly. So I'm just going to cut it, unfortunately.
All right, pretty solid reasoning on that one. I see a couple of other cards that you've removed from the list. The first one here being a sorcery. Let's move on to that one.
Yes. Crippling Fear. 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't the chosen type get -3/-3 till the end of the turn. This one I kind of talked about with actually you and others, but I just don't think in a commander game a -3/-3 is going to do much, especially against, let's say, Eldrazi's. But I mean, I do understand that maybe in a, let's say, enchantment deck we're playing against, or in a planeswalker deck, sometimes they make tokens. I get maybe that's why this is in here, but this just felt like a very underwhelming board wipe to me.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this card either. I feel like it's kind of expensive and it has the potential to really just do nothing.
Yeah, so we're gonna cut it out and make room.
All right, another card that we're going to be removing.
Yes, so we added a couple artifacts. I wanted to cut one of the artifacts that were existing. We're gonna be cutting out Icon of Ancestry, 3 generic for an artifact that says, as Icon of Ancestry enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1. You can also pay 3, tap this. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I get it. You're going to be getting a +1/+1 for your slivers. This is, again, just kind of one of those things that it feels underwhelming. Like, yeah, you can look at 3, put 1 in your hand, but the amount of card draws in this deck and the other artifacts we're adding into this deck, I just don't know if this is going to be enough. And it wasn't enough because I'm not going to keep it.
All right. I mean, I totally get that. Sometimes we have to make some cuts to make some room for the good things, and sometimes the cuts can be a little bit hard. And maybe we got to get rid of something that just does it better.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then I do see 4 lands here. We already talked about how we kind of fixed up the mana base a little bit. How do we make room for those inclusions? What cards did we cut?
Yep. So just right off the bat, I cut Ash Barrens. I'm never a fan of this card. So you can say that we're trading Ash Barrens for Sliver Hive. That is just obviously an upgrade. And then for those 3 tri-lands that I added in that actually have the land types on them, we're going to cut the respective tri-lands that don't have the land types on the card itself. So that being Savage Lands, Seaside Citadel, and Mystic Monastery. They're all going to tap for 3 different colored lands that come in tapped. So they're pretty much what I am adding, just minus the land type on them, so they're not searchable with the fetches. So we're just going to trade them up, strictly an upgrade.
All right. Make sure that we can fetch those out and then cycle them away in the case that we need to.
Exactly.
So we gave you $100 for you to do this upgrade. At the time that you built this deck, because I know a lot of the cards obviously going to be fluctuating in price, how much of that 100 did you spend?
Yep, you were correct. These should be fluctuating a bit, but at the time of recording, these ads, all these 13 cards, will add up to $103. So these could be, going up, going down, but they're going to stick around the 103 price range.
Whenever I did my 100, I also came out to about 103, and Steven said as a result I would need to be disqualified. So I think that it's only fair game if that falls upon you as well.
I think all that means is that you and I are just better, and we're probably going to win when we play, right?
Heck yeah, we got $3 whole extra thrown in these. All right, well, that is awesome. I'm super excited to see this deck in action. Hopefully it doesn't really kick my butt too badly whenever it comes to our $100 little Precon battle. And very excited to see what we've got coming forward with the enchantment deck and then also the Planeswalker decks. Those will be coming out here soon as well. Thank you so much for sticking through with this video. Make sure that you leave a comment down below. What cards did Shane forget to include in this Precon, or what cards did he not cut that you think were worthy of it? If you have any questions or anything like that, make sure you leave those comments down below. Make sure that you subscribe and like this video. Make sure that you follow us on our other social media platforms. We are Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Guys That Magic. And before I forget, make sure that you check it out. We also have the link for the Mox field of this, and then we'll have the $300 version of this coming out here shortly as well. Thank you so much for all the love and support. This has been Guys That Magic, and until next time, peace.
Bye.